The rain fell like shattered glass against the windshield of Logan Pierce's black Aston Martin, each drop slicing through the silence of the lonely road like a whispered secret. The Oregon night was colder than usual, gray skies, fog curling around the treetops, and a storm creeping in from the coast. But none of that could distract Logan. His mind was still tangled in the chaos of the tech conference he'd just dominated. Another $1 million pitch, another round of shallow applause, another victory that felt more hollow than triumphant. His knuckles tightened around the steering wheel. Success had become a machine, churning endlessly beneath his fingertips. Everything was calculated, efficient, safe, until her. The tires screeched suddenly, violently, rubber howling against wet asphalt as Logan slammed the brakes. His heart lurched in his chest. Headlights splashed across a figure in the middle of the road. A woman, soaked, barefoot, spinning slowly beneath the downpour as if the world around her didn't exist. She hadn't even flinched. For a second, neither of them moved. He stared, breath caught in his throat, eyes narrowing against the wiper blades slashing across his view. The glow from the headlights cast her in an otherworldly light. Long dark hair matted to her face, a white blouse plastered to her skin, clinging to her like a second soul. Her arms were outstretched, palms open, welcoming the storm like an old friend. Logan rolled down the window. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted, voice barely heard over the rain. The woman turned to him, slowly, as if she hadn't noticed the car nearly mowing her down. Her eyes sparkled, not with fear, but with something wilder. "Freer?" She smiled. Not politely, not nervously. A real, radiant, defiant smile. "Dancing," she replied. Logan blinked, stunned. "In the middle of the road?" She nodded, brushing her soaked hair back as thunder growled overhead. "Sometimes the rain is the only thing that understands." He was speechless. For the first time in a long time, Logan Pierce, the man with the answers to every problem, the master of every negotiation, had nothing. She took a small step toward the window, close enough now that he could see the tiny water droplets on her lashes, the faint smudge of red lipstick still clinging to her lower lip. "You could have been killed," he said, softer now. "Could have," she said, "but wasn't." He couldn't stop staring. She looked like she belonged to the storm, not a victim of it, but its muse, raw, unfiltered, alive in a way he hadn't seen in years. "Where are your shoes?" he asked dumbly. She laughed, a soft, melodic sound that cut through the noise like a lullaby. "Don't need 'em." The absurdity of the situation wrapped around him like a noose and a lifeline all at once. "Look," he muttered, clearing his throat. "You're going to get hypothermia out here. Let me give you a ride." For the first time, something shifted in her expression, just a flicker of tension beneath her smile. "I don't take rides from strangers," she said gently. "I'm not a stranger," he replied without thinking. "I'm Logan Pierce." The name usually landed like thunder, but she didn't flinch, didn't bat an eyelash. Instead, she leaned closer, smirking. "Should I be impressed?" He blinked. "Most people are." She shrugged. "Then I guess I'm not most people." With that, she turned, bare feet splashing through puddles as she walked toward the sidewalk, like she hadn't just left a billionaire speechless on a rainy road. Logan sat there stunned, wipers still swiping, engine humming, her silhouette slowly fading into the darkness. Who the hell was she? He waited a beat, two, then suddenly threw the car into park, jumped out, and jogged after her, his designer shoes slipping slightly on the wet pavement. "Wait, at least tell me your name." She paused under the flickering glow of a street lamp, her back to him, shoulders rising and falling with breath. Then without turning, she said, "Aubrey." "Aubrey what?" She looked over her shoulder, smirked again. "Just Aubrey." And then she was gone, vanishing into the mist like a ghost spun from moonlight and music. Logan stood there, rain soaking through his coat, cold settling into his bones. But for the first time in years, he felt something. Not success, not pressure, not obligation, but curiosity, obsession, a spark. That night, he didn't sleep. And every time he closed his eyes, he saw her dancing in the road. Fearless, reckless, beautiful, and haunted. He didn't believe in fate until that night. And now he needed to see her again. Logan Pierce had faced down billion-dollar acquisitions and cutthroat boardroom betrayals without blinking. But no negotiation, no high-stakes merger, no scandal had ever haunted him the way she did. Aubrey, just Aubrey. She was a ghost that lingered in his thoughts, waking him at 3 a.m. with visions of thunder, bare feet, and that unforgettable smile. For days he scoured the town. He didn't even understand why. All he had was a name, a face, and the echo of a laugh that didn't belong to this cold, calculated world he ruled. His assistant, Lila, sharp as ever, finally broke through. "She's volunteering at a community music center in the East District," Lila told him one morning. Eyes narrowed as she slid the report across his desk. "No last name listed. No emergency contact. No rental agreement. It's like she doesn't exist." But she did, and Logan needed to see her again. The center was nothing more than a rundown brick building wedged between a laundromat and a pawn shop. Graffiti peeled from the walls. The sign hung crooked, half the lights blown out. But from inside, music drifted. Soft, fragile, and hopeful. Logan stepped in, instantly out of place in his tailored suit and Italian shoes. Kids sat in a circle on the scratched hardwood floor, holding mismatched instruments. A tiny boy with a violin, a girl with a dented trumpet, a keyboard missing 3 keys. And at the center, Aubrey, hair braided loosely down her back, she swayed gently as she guided them through a melody. Her voice rose like warm wind through broken windows. She didn't see him at first, but he saw her. She belonged here, barefoot still, laughing with the kids, radiant despite the peeling paint and flickering lights. Logan had never stepped foot in a place like this. It smelled of dust and hope and echoes of a past long forgotten by the world he knew. When the song ended and the children scattered for snack time, her eyes finally found his. She blinked once, then again. No shock, no smile, just wary recognition. "I told you I don't take rides from strangers," she murmured, walking toward him with arms crossed, still holding a tambourine. Logan offered a cautious smile. "Then let's stop being strangers." She tilted her head. "You tracked me down." "I had to." "Why?" The question caught him off guard. He could have said a dozen things. That she intrigued him. That he couldn't stop thinking about her. That she had somehow cracked something inside of him. But instead he said, "I just wanted to see where you disappeared to." A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. "I work here," she said. "I teach the kids." "And live here?" Her gaze hardened. "There's a room in the back," she admitted. "It's not much, but it's mine. And before you offer—" "No, I'm not interested in moving out or taking money or whatever you came here to do." Logan hesitated. "I wasn't—" "You were," she interrupted. "They always are. People like you think kindness is measured in zeros and square footage." He took a step closer. "That's not fair." She raised an eyebrow. "Neither is life." There it was again. That fire. That defiance that made her magnetic, dangerous, real. He glanced around at the broken-down space, the cracked windows, the old speakers held together with duct tape. "These kids deserve more," he said gently. "So give them more," she said, turning away. "But don't pretend it's about them." It stung, but she wasn't wrong. He returned the next day, and the next. He didn't come in suits anymore. He came in jeans, rolled his sleeves, sat in the back as she sang. Watched the way she came alive with every note, every child's smile. Slowly the walls between them cracked. She let him carry a box of sheet music. He helped clean the rust off an old drum set. One day she caught him humming along and smiled for real. And that was when he knew he was in deep. He spoke to his team in private. Found a new building just blocks away. Big windows, safe foundation, perfect acoustics. He didn't tell her at first, but she found out. He waited outside the center one evening, the sky turning lavender above them. When she walked out and saw the folder in his hand, her body stiffened. "What is that?" "A gift," he said. "A better space, a safer space. You and the kids deserve it." Her eyes flashed like lightning. You went behind my back. I was trying to help. She stepped back. You were trying to own it. He froze. I'm not some broken thing you can fix, Logan. She hissed, voice shaking. I'm not one of your charity cases. Aubrey, I don't need saving. She turned to leave, but stopped. Her breath caught. Neither of them moved. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. I just wanted to matter to you, he finally said, voice barely audible. She didn't reply, but the next morning she was there again, singing, smiling faintly in his direction, her walls still up but not as high. She hadn't walked away, not yet, and neither had he. Weeks passed like whispers, soft, unspoken, and far too fast. Logan Pierce, the man who once prided himself on control, now found himself waking early not to check stock markets, but to pick up a specific kind of coffee, black with a splash of vanilla, no sugar, just how Aubrey liked it. He brought it to the center almost every morning now. Sometimes she took it with a playful smirk. Other times she rolled her eyes and said nothing. But he noticed, she always drank it. She brought laughter, that easy, airy kind that couldn't be taught, the kind that lingered in a room long after she was gone. She told the kids silly stories that made them cackle and taught them songs that made even Logan hum along under his breath. They argued, too. A lot. About everything from how to discipline a kid who broke a ukulele string to whether a billionaire had any business near a community center at all. She never backed down. He never wanted her to. And somewhere in between the debates and the coffee cups, the laughter and the lingering silences, Logan told her the truth one quiet evening when the kids had gone and the sky was painted with orange dusk. I haven't felt anything real in years, he confessed, his voice almost unsure, as if saying it out loud might break whatever fragile bridge they'd built between them. Aubrey had glanced up then, eyes searching his. That's not my problem, she said flatly, but her fingers had lingered on his wrist for just a second too long before she walked away. That night stayed with him. Still, Logan kept showing up, not because he had to, but because something about her pulled him in like gravity. And then the rain returned. It came one Friday night, sudden and loud. The sky cracked open like a heart breaking, and thunder rolled over the rooftops of the sleeping town. Most people hurried inside, but Logan, soaked in his hoodie and jeans, found himself standing at the gates of the music center once again. He wasn't sure why he'd come. He just had to. He stepped inside, dripping water across the old linoleum floor. The place was mostly dark, except for a soft light glowing near the back room. Music. Aubrey's voice. She was alone, singing softly as she reorganized sheet music, unaware of his presence. Drawings from the kids fluttered on the walls, crayon rainbows, stick figure families, and musical notes with happy faces. He didn't speak. He just watched, letting the sound of her voice pull the ache from his chest. When she finally saw him, she didn't smile, but she didn't tell him to leave either. You're soaked, she said, tossing him a towel. He caught it. So are you. She looked down at her feet, bare again, as usual, and grinned faintly. You have a thing for rain, don't you? I think I have a thing for you, he said quietly. Her breath hitched. For once she had no witty retort. They stood in silence, the storm outside growing louder. Aubrey turned toward the open door and stepped into the night. Rain poured down like it had the night they met. Wild, beautiful, unrelenting. Without thinking, Logan followed. She twirled, laughing like a girl in a forgotten dream, arms outstretched, face tilted toward the sky. You think the rain scares me? She shouted over the thunder. No, he said. I think it sets you free. She stopped spinning, breathing hard, drenched. Her soaked dress clung to her frame, her hair a wild halo. She looked like a storm given form. And suddenly he reached for her. No music, no words. He simply pulled her close, rain cascading down their faces, and moved with her. They swayed slowly, their bodies warm despite the chill, their feet slipping slightly in the puddles. Aubrey didn't resist. They danced. No rhythm, no choreography. Just two souls, soaked and raw and real, lost in a moment that didn't belong to the world. His hands settled against the small of her back, her head tilted against his chest, and in the stillness between lightning and thunder, Logan leaned close and whispered against her temple. I love you. She stiffened. The shift was immediate. Her body pulled away just slightly, as if those three words carried more danger than the sky above. He felt it. The air changed. Her eyes met his. Not glowing, not teasing, not defiant like always. They were afraid, truly afraid. And then she whispered the words that unraveled him. You don't know who I am. Before he could ask, before he could reach for her again, Aubrey slipped from his grasp. She backed away, barefoot and broken, eyes wide with a kind of sadness he didn't understand. And then she ran, into the storm, swallowed by the night. Logan stood alone in the street, soaked to the bone, his heart thundering louder than the sky. He didn't chase her. He couldn't, because suddenly he realized she wasn't just running from him. She was running from something far darker, and he had no idea what. Logan had never been the type to chase ghosts, but ever since Aubrey vanished into the storm, sleep had become a stranger. Days blurred into nights, coffee became a meal, and silence grew louder with each passing hour. He'd search through records, old newspapers, and anything else his money and influence could get him access to. But the woman known as Aubrey Sinclair was nowhere, because she had never truly existed. What he finally found chilled him more than any storm ever could. Aubrey Whitmore, daughter of Charles Whitmore, the Wall Street mogul turned national disgrace. A name once praised in Forbes, now rotted in headlines and courtroom transcripts. Her father's Ponzi scheme had decimated lives, wiped out pensions, and pushed hundreds into bankruptcy. It had been the financial scandal of the decade, and when the empire collapsed, so did the family. She'd disappeared after the trial, changing her last name to Sinclair, her mother's maiden name, abandoning everything. She was just 19 then. Now it all made sense. The guarded eyes, the refusal to accept help, the aching look she gave him when he said he loved her. She didn't believe she deserved love. Logan found her 3 days later in the dim back room of the music center, folding clothes into a battered suitcase. The room looked stripped bare, like she was erasing herself before anyone could stop her. She froze when she saw him. You weren't supposed to find me, she whispered, her voice hollow. Logan stepped forward slowly, not as a billionaire, but as a man wrecked by the thought of losing someone who had taught him how to feel again. I know who you are, Aubrey Whitmore. Her lips parted, tears forming instantly in her eyes. I didn't want you to find out like this, she said, her voice cracking with shame. I've been running for so long. I've paid off debts I didn't create. I've slept on floors, scrubbed dishes in diners, sang for coins in parks. I didn't want anyone to look at me and see him. Logan didn't flinch. He didn't pity her. He stepped closer, brushing a strand of her damp hair behind her ear. I don't care who your father was. I care who you are. The woman who brings music to broken kids, who dances in the rain and laughs at thunder. That's the only name that matters to me. Her lips trembled. You don't understand. People hate my name. The press tore us apart. If the world finds out who I am, they'll ruin you for being near me. He smiled sadly. Let them try. She wanted to believe him, but fear still clung to her like the rain that night. I can't let you lose everything for me, she said. Logan cupped her face gently, pressing his forehead against hers. You're not everything I could lose, Aubrey. You're everything I ever wanted to find. She closed her eyes, a single tear sliding down her cheek. But then, just as quickly, she pulled away. I'm sorry, she said, backing toward the door. But I'm not ready. And with that, she left again, leaving Logan in the empty room, her suitcase still half packed, and her name echoing in his heart like a song unfinished. The pressure weighed on Logan like an anchor dragging him under. His phone was a constant source of stress. Calls, texts, emails, all demanding his attention, all begging for him to fix the mess he'd unknowingly stepped into. The headline that had rocked the business world, the one that painted his love for Aubrey as a liability, had sparked a firestorm. Tech billionaire dates daughter of infamous felon. It seemed like the entire stock market was trembling under the weight of that one sentence. It wasn't just the investors who were rattled. The press was merciless too. Reporters camped out in front of his office, speculating about his relationship with a woman they deemed unworthy of his time, one whose last name was tainted by scandal. Stocks dipped as the world waited for his next move. Logan's empire, the empire he'd spent years building from the ground up, was on the brink of unraveling, all because of one woman. The board of directors gathered in an emergency meeting. Logan was summoned. They didn't hold back in their condemnation. "Logan, you have a responsibility to this company," his COO, Peter Wells, said, his voice tight with concern. "You cannot afford to be distracted by personal issues. You know the damage this could do." Logan's heart pounded in his chest. He tried to keep his cool, but the pressure was mounting, like 1,000 hands pulling at him from all sides. "This is not just about the company. This is my life, my choice." "Don't be naive," his CFO, Jenna Clark, shot back. "This affects everyone, Logan. The board, the investors. You're risking your entire future on this woman." The room fell silent, each pair of eyes trained on him, waiting for him to make a choice. He felt the weight of their stares like a physical blow. "I'm not ending things with her," Logan finally said, his voice steady, but his words sending shockwaves through the room. "I won't distance myself from Aubrey." Peter's jaw clenched. "Then you're putting everything at risk. Your reputation, your empire. The shareholders won't stand for this." "I don't care," Logan said, rising from his seat. His voice was firm, unwavering. "I'm not going to let anyone dictate who I love." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Logan knew they were ready to fight him at every turn. But for the first time in a long time, he didn't care about the power and prestige they represented. He cared about the woman who had turned his world upside down, Aubrey. Despite the overwhelming pressure, Logan walked out of the boardroom with a newfound sense of resolve. This was it. No turning back now. The following day, Logan called a press conference. The room buzzed with anticipation. Reporters filled the seats, their pens ready to capture whatever he was about to say. Logan adjusted the microphone, taking a deep breath. He had never felt so exposed in his life, but the moment called for it. The cameras clicked, and the crowd grew silent. Logan stood tall at the podium, his heart pounding in his chest, but his eyes set with determination. "I've heard the rumors. I've seen the headlines," he began, his voice unwavering. "Yes, I'm dating Aubrey Sinclair." The reporters stirred, scribbling down every word. "She is not her past," he continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "She's not her father. She's the most beautiful, selfless person I've ever known, and she deserves to be loved just as much as anyone else." Logan felt the weight of their judgment, but refused to let it break him. "I won't apologize for loving her, and I won't back down." He glanced at the reporters, meeting their eyes one by one, daring them to question him. He was done pretending to be the perfect, polished millionaire. He was done letting others dictate his choices. "I know the risks," he added, his voice softer now, but no less resolute. "But I'll face them, because Aubrey is worth it." The room was dead silent, the reporters processing what they had just heard. Logan didn't care what the world thought anymore. He was done hiding, but behind the scenes, Aubrey was watching. She had seen the headlines, heard the rumors, and felt the weight of Logan's words. The truth was, she had never expected him to defend her like that, so publicly, so boldly. But she wasn't ready for it. She wasn't ready for the scrutiny, the judgment, the inevitable backlash that would follow. Aubrey knew all too well how easily the world could turn on someone. She wasn't a fool. She'd seen what the press could do to a person, how they could tear apart a life with a few well-placed words. She felt the fear creeping in, deep in her bones. She wasn't ready to be Logan's weakness. She wasn't ready to risk everything she had built, again. And so, just hours after the press conference, as Logan reveled in his victory, Aubrey disappeared once more. No note, no warning. She just left. Logan had defended her, but in doing so, he had only pushed her further away. When Logan returned to his apartment later that night, hoping to find her waiting for him, there was nothing. No text, no phone call, just emptiness, a suffocating silence. And with that silence came the crushing realization. Aubrey had left again, this time without a goodbye. Days turned into weeks and Logan felt himself unraveling. The constant meetings, the endless calls, the emails, all of it seemed like a distant hum in his ears. He couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate. His thoughts were consumed by the image of Aubrey, her radiant smile, her defiant laugh, the way she had danced through the rain that night. The sound of her voice, so powerful, so haunting, echoed in his mind. He couldn't escape it, no matter how hard he tried. The emptiness in his heart gnawed at him. He knew that he had pushed her too far, had placed her in a world she was never meant to inhabit. The world of high society, where every mistake could be magnified, every action scrutinized. He had told her he loved her, but maybe, just maybe, he hadn't truly understood the depths of her fear, the fear of being judged, the fear of losing herself again. Logan couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. He walked through the halls of his company like a ghost, his mind miles away. Every corner he turned, every face he saw, seemed like a reminder of the one person he couldn't find. Then one afternoon, a package arrived at his office. There was no note, no explanation, just a small, unmarked box. His heart skipped as he tore it open, his breath catching in his chest. Inside was a simple CD, its surface scratched and worn. A handwritten label on it read, "The Song of the Lost." Confused, he slid the CD into his player, his hands trembling as the soft crackle of the music began. Then her voice filled the room, raw, unpolished, yet undeniably powerful. The haunting melody, so familiar yet filled with new emotion, seemed to pull him closer to her, like she was speaking directly to him. The lyrics were simple, but the weight of them was unmistakable. He closed his eyes, feeling the sting of every word as it resonated within him. "I tried to run from love, but you danced through my storm." His heart shattered as he listened. Every note was a reflection of the pain she had felt, the pain he had caused. Aubrey had tried to push him away, had tried to run from the love he offered. But in her song, she had admitted something he had never expected, that she had never truly escaped it, that she had never stopped loving him. Logan's breath hitched as the song faded out. There was no mistaking it now. Aubrey was reaching out to him, speaking to him through the only way she knew how. But the question remained, would it be enough? Was he too late? He needed to find her. He couldn't wait any longer, couldn't let her slip through his fingers again. The ache in his chest was unbearable, and he knew, deep down, that he had to follow the trace of her voice, wherever it led him. The next morning, Logan scoured the internet, trying to find any clue that could lead him to her. And then he found it, a small music festival in a remote town in Montana. The event was low-key, a local gathering of artists and musicians, but the headline caught his eye. Aubrey Whitmore, music from the heart. His pulse quickened. It had to be her. He knew it. Without hesitation, Logan booked a flight to Montana, the urgency in his every move pushing him forward. He couldn't risk wasting any more time. The town was quiet and picturesque, a small collection of buildings nestled beneath rolling hills. The festival was tucked in a corner of a sprawling green field, with a modest stage set up beneath the gray skies. People milled about, sipping warm drinks and chatting, but Logan's eyes were locked on one place, the stage. There, under the muted light, stood Aubrey. She was singing, her voice carrying across the field, filling the air with a sense of longing and vulnerability. She wore no makeup, her hair tousled from the wind, but there was something about her that made her shine, something that pulled at Logan's heart with a force he couldn't ignore. Her eyes were closed as she sang, her expression serene yet pained. The crowd was hushed, captivated by her raw emotion. For a moment, Logan stood frozen, watching her, his breath caught in his throat. But the moment was fleeting. He couldn't stand there any longer, couldn't watch her from afar. She needed to know he was here. She needed to know that he had heard her, that he understood. As the last note of her song rang out, Logan made his move. He pushed through the crowd, every step taking him closer to her, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached the edge of the stage just as Aubrey began to step back, preparing to leave. "Aubrey!" he called, his voice trembling. Her head whipped around, her eyes widening in shock. For a moment they just stood there, staring at each other, the world seeming to fall away around them. Without thinking, Logan stepped onto the stage. He reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. Aubrey hesitated, her gaze flickering between his face and the ground. She looked like she was about to pull away, just like she had every other time. But this time, Logan wouldn't let her. He pulled her closer, his other hand resting gently on her back. The rain began to fall in soft sheets, blurring the edges of the world around them. The crowd had dissipated, leaving only the two of them beneath the open sky. No words were spoken. None were needed. The music of the moment, the rhythm of the rain, was all they needed. Logan's heart swelled as he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. They moved together, slow and steady, in perfect harmony. His heart beat in time with hers, the ache in his chest finally beginning to ease. They danced in the rain, just the two of them, with nothing else in the world but the love they had shared, the love they were finding again. And in that moment, Logan knew with certainty. He would never let her go. The rain poured steadily around them, but in that moment, it was as though time had stopped. Logan held Aubrey close, her warmth a comfort against the chill of the storm. They stood there, wrapped in the quiet understanding that they had finally found their way back to each other. "You were always worth waiting for," Logan whispered, his voice rough with emotion. Aubrey's eyes searched his, full of uncertainty. "But my past, what if it catches up with us? What if it ruins everything?" Logan gently cupped her face, wiping away a stray tear that mingled with the rain. "Your past doesn't define you, Aubrey. Who you are now, that's what matters. I love you, all of you. The beautiful, brave, flawed woman standing right here." Her chest tightened with a mix of relief and fear. She had never allowed herself to believe in love like this, not since the betrayal and loss that had scarred her. But looking at Logan now, hearing the sincerity in his voice, she felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice a whisper. "What if I'm not enough? What if I can't give you what you deserve?" Logan's gaze softened, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "You've already given me everything. Your love, your trust. That's more than I could ever ask for." Aubrey closed her eyes, feeling the truth of his words seep into her bones. The pain of the past, the guilt, the shame, began to feel less heavy, like it no longer had the power to define her future. She was no longer alone. "I love you too," she whispered back, her voice shaking with the weight of her emotions. It was the first time she had spoken those words without hesitation, and it felt like the beginning of something new. Logan smiled, his heart swelling with the love he had waited so long to claim. "Then let's make this work. We'll face whatever comes together." She nodded, finally letting herself believe it. The rain continued to fall, but in that moment, it was a promise of new beginnings, of healing, and of love. Hand in hand, they walked into the future. No more doubts, no more fears, just them.